Forward to Okay. So, Oliver, thank you so much for setting aside this time to speak with me and to talk one on one. I really appreciate it. It's a real privilege and a joy to be here with you.
It's my total pleasure. Thank you.
Um, we had a great start to the conversation in April, and we're continuing it now. And I want to pick up on some of the things that we talked about then around your poetry and hopefully get to discussing eco-poetics and what that means for you. We talked also about diaspora and queerness and trans experience. And since then, things have changed, and you're now in exile. And so I'd love to return to some of those questions and just ask how this change that you've made is affecting your thinking and your writing and how you're living it right now.
Yeah. Gosh, those events in April feel both like a blink ago and also like an eternity ago. Time
Yeah.
is so interesting. Um, yeah, I'm writing from, I mean, I'm a position of exile now.
Mm,
And although I increasingly believe that exile doesn't necessarily start when the person leaves the country. I
mm,
feel like it starts earlier when the country abandons the person. But
mhm,
uh, I, this vantage point of exile, it's an evolving reality, that it shapes every part of my my work, and in a way that you would think that living in poetry and in line breaks would prepare you for, but it's not even a line break, it's not even a stanza break,
mm,
it's like totalmente. Um and the project is to build a new life, and though I'm not naming the place on record, it has changed my relationship to language and safety and place, and also has sharpened my understanding of poems
mm,
as uh I want to say a site of survival, but that sounds
mm,
so, I mean, it's true, even though it sounds a little trite. As a thing that that you can build and live inside, you know, um, like as a home or the home
mm, mm,
when um when you have to leave your other one. And um survival, but not just survival, resistance and transformation and all of that always. Um and also as the place where my voice can still be free, um even when, you know uh when my body was under threat. So I feel like I write now from a place both of, es muy complejo, uh earthly dispossession,
mm.
but also um regeneration, I think. Yeah.
Mm.
can elaborate on any of that if you want me to. Just, yeah. Are we are we connected? Maybe we froze.
Hey, I am
Hi.
sorry about that. Did I just freeze?
All good. Yeah, yeah, it just froze. It froze. But
It,
it
it
froze
was
exactly when I stopped talking, so I don't think you missed anything.
okay. I think it's so sorry. This is less than optimum. It's really, oh my God. All right, is this, yeah, it's recording now. So let's pick up where we left off.
Okay,
Thanks for rolling
cool.
with it. Uh,
Totally.
I think I've lost the train of thought as I was trying to deal with the technological stuff.
You had asked generally about, well, you what did you ask? I don't remember
Well, I asked you
exactly,
about like the
but
about
the question that I think I answered was kind of about writing from the new positionality of exile and kind of
yes. Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
has changed for me.
Yeah. I really liked how you're saying that it's more than a line break or a stanza break. Like it's a whole other, it's like switching between maybe between pieces of writing or a different book. I don't know. Um,
Totally. Yeah, I was reading Cristina Peri Rossi earlier today, Estado del Exilio.
aha.
Um and uh she writes in here somewhere about, yeah, um the la raptura um is how she describes it. I mean, more than that, I won't try to paraphrase it from memory, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's I guess I'm surprised by how much of a vantage point it feels like, and I don't know why that surprises me, except that I didn't know what to expect, but um
Hmm.
uh it's uh I mean, I have another line from a poem that I was working on, uh cambié mi vida por mi vida, eso es la matemática imposible del exilio.
Mm.
It's uh
And that's
just
your poem.
sí, 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 yeah,
Yes, you're writing poems in Spanish. Is this the first time you're writing poems entirely in Spanish?
yeah,
You're playing
yeah,
with that now. That's exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It started out as like uh uh pequeñas prácticas, I was calling them, but now I think it's not just practice. Well, maybe all of poetry
Yeah.
is or something, but
Yeah.
um,
How do you feel that how do the poems feel different or the same to you?
um, you know how you can't always tell with your own stuff, but I I do have maybe a sneaking suspicion that, um am I a little bit more expressive in Spanish, or am I a little bit more expressive in exile? Los dos. Los dos. There's no way really to parse the difference. Um, but uh, I mean, it's a slower process. I read my poems in Spanish, and then I open a page of Consider the Rooster, and it's like, man, when your whole personality was formed under and organized, like it's just uh in some ways, my poems in Spanish are simpler, just necessarily because
Mhm,
I'm still learning. But um, but they also feel like they have um a clarity, and maybe the kind of clarity that comes uh when any tool is new, like a
mhm,
language, you know.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and there's a kind of intensity to the relationship with it, um, because of that newness.
mhm,
So, I
mhm.
mean, different words rhyme. Some things take 2 words to say in Spanish that take 5 or more to say in English, and some vice versa. So it's really interesting and different.
Mhm, mhm. That's super interesting. I'm thinking about, Samuel Beckett, who famously moved to France and chose to switch to writing in French, that it brought a kind of clarity and economy to his writing, that it stripped things away, um, because he was starting from the ground up, right?
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's some of
Yeah.
what I feel when I look at Consider the Rooster. I'm just like, there's so
Yeah.
many
Oh,
words.
my
I know
copy.
so many words in English. I
You
know so
do, you
many
do. I love
words
this
that
book.
are in English. Thank
Love
you.
this book. We
Thank
got to
you.
talk about this book. Yeah,
Thank
it's a
you. Thank
beautiful
you.
book.
Thank
Oh,
you.
it's so good.
I really appreciate it. I'm excited for my dad to visit me in a month and bring more copies. I brought
Uh,
just, it's funny. I had this huge, in terms of trim size, I had this large book come out, and then
yeah.
when I was packing, I found myself suddenly like skimming my bookshelf for like what tiny books can I bring with me so that I can fit more. And so now I think, maybe I need to approach Nightboat about like a pocket portable version of Consider
Yeah,
the Rooster.
yeah.
It's,
That's great. That's like, this is the kind of things that leads like later on scholars are like, why did he only take the complete City Lights pocket-sized whatever with him?
exactly. Now I know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's called practical constraints.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I kind of have a question actually. Okay, so like metaphorically speaking, who are the
Yeah.
poets that you feel that you always carry with you, um, inside of you? I see in Consider the Rooster, you have an epigraph from Dickinson, one from Elizabeth Bishop. And I pick up references in the book, but for you, like, who are the writers that you keep coming back to and that have kept you company most closely?
Yeah. I mean, Emily Dickinson for sure, I think I love how there's like the popular idea of who she was, very reclusive, maybe even like in some ways boring, and and yet, you actually read her poems, and like the ones that are beyond just maybe the most anthologized or the most taught to children or whatever. And it's like there was so much going on and like a lot of weird stuff. And I just really appreciate that. Um,
Hmm.
uh, uh, Rain Arroyo, I didn't even learn about his work until after he had died. And so then I kind of went through this process of like reading everything that I could of his. And I just, with, he was a gay Midwestern poet, Puerto Rican, who wrote about both feeling at home and also far from home in the Midwest. And um there's for me there's a kinship there that I always have with me. And that I think teaches me how to be in all the layers at once.
Mhm.
Uh his his collected The Buried Sea has a short introductory essay by him uh called Some Debts Are Angels. And it's a lyrical essay. It's like it progresses in like numbered paragraphs. And that essay in particular has been super influential for me. um I have it in PDF. I can send it to you later if you can't track it
Cool.
down.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
uh AR Ammons, I read him in when I was in undergrad at Iowa, and in my very first poetry workshop ever. And uh, I think in terms of like roots of um, my ecopoetics
Yeah.
and uh, his voice, his process, his way of being with place and not only writing about it, but with it in terms of form, in terms of um, ways that he wielded the colon in his poems as a kind of lowercase d democratic punctuation mark through which things can flow with like less hierarchy than a period. All of that has been super influential for me. Um,
Mhm.
uh, who else did I bring? Um, uh, Lorca, Banu Kapil,
Uh-huh.
Nazim Hikmet, um, just to name some.
Yeah.
Autobiography, M. Carson's autobiography I've read totally
Uh-huh.
blew my mind open in terms of like how enjambment just can be so surprising
Uh-huh.
and feel so queer, I guess, in some ways. Yeah.
In what way does the enjambment
Um,
feel queer?
like, uh, I mean, maybe there. I just mean, aside from the kind of the queerness, within the book. No, not aside from it. Not at all aside from it. Not at all aside from it. Um, it's it it the line breaks for me in Autobiography of Red. They both feel like the line has been broken, has been turned in like the last place that you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like non-normative, but then when you read it, it feels like the only place that that line could have been broken. And I
Uh-huh.
it's that sweet spot between um the non-conformity of like, where you might conventionally expect a line to be broken, but then allowing the kind of um the pleasure of it to like make the break from tradition worth it. And to me that's queerness. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That was beautiful. That was a beautiful explanation.
thanks for
Uh,
asking. I love the
makes
question.
a lot of sense. I'm curious, who was that first poetry workshop with at Iowa?
It was with Caroline Manring, who at the time was a graduate student in the writer's workshop. And we read Bishop, we read Ammons. I didn't even know. I mean, I fell into that workshop kind of not knowing what else to take, and it was really like, oh, poetry. What is this thing? I can't stop writing it. I couldn't stop writing it after that. Even when I kind of tried to take my life in
Oh,
other directions. So I surrendered. I surrendered to poetry a few years later.
did you
And
get to Iowa thinking you would do prose or?
oh, I was born and raised in Iowa City.
Yeah.
It was the hometown university where like I got a scholarship and I entered as I was, maybe political science, maybe environmental science, maybe environmental science was a 500-person lecture and the professor refused to use a microphone. And so that was like the end of environmental science for me. Um,
Oh no.
and then I was a little lost. And then I started taking classes in the English department and realized like, oh, I feel like this could be a home for me because you can read about anything and I will never get bored. And so in a way, it began as a way to kind of defer my decision of what I wanted to focus on. But then it became the focus. And at the time, there wasn't yet a creative writing major for undergrads there that came later, but I did a creative writing concentration and a concentration in um, post-colonial lit. Those were my two
Okay.
concentrations. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Um, so you came into college with an interest in environmental science,
Yeah.
and then you ended up maybe channeling some of those interests into your poetry, it seems like. Um, you've talked and written about eco-poetics, and I don't, but I'd like to just ask you to talk about what it means for you and what it means for your writing in terms of like themes, process, form, conversations that you're part of.
Mm. Yeah, ecopoetics for me, um it's not uh it's not like a topic or an aboutness, if that makes sense. It's about an entanglement, I think. And an entanglement that, we are all subject to or participants in, and it maybe the ecopoetics for me is about acknowledging that on the page or allowing that entanglement onto the page. Uh, I, uh, I, I think of it as writing with place, like letting place in as a co-author, as a collaborator,
Mhm.
um, as a force that already acts upon us all the time, and as one that can help shape the forms on the page, can uh, press against the speaker in all kinds of ways, has so much to do with how we experience the world and and memory and sensation. And so the rooster, all the fields that I have known and loved, uh, the weather, the fog today that I thought would burn off this morning and hasn't. It's just like
Huh?
it's camping out in this day. Um, these are my co-writers. And for me, it's like, thank goodness for that. We don't have to do it all alone. We can't anyway. It's impossible. So I just, um, and, um, and so, my my first book, I wrote those poems, uh, like when I was starting to, like transition my gender physically. And I was living in Wisconsin at the time. I was in grad school, and it's like I'm like in my 20s going through a second puberty. And none of my like the first puberty, even when all of your peers are going through it alongside you, is bad enough. It's awkward enough. And so to this second one and like um just me, uh but all around me there was like the awkward visible, messy, beautiful, weird, mysterious transformations happening in the leaves, you know? I mean, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
in the Midwest, ice becoming icicles dripping into water, lakes freezing into ice. Just everywhere I looked, there was like transness happening. Um, and so, yeah, from that book, I mean, in all of mine, in different uh, specificities, but it's the same. Um, it's uh, it's um, uh, another way of coming at what we all want, which is to not be alone.
Hmm.
And uh,
Hmm.
to me, the difference, ecopoetics, that is also a key difference for me of with ecopoetics versus nature poetry, and
Hmm.
um, where ecopoetics for me, it's about the relationships. Between beings of the same species, across species, between beings and like the place. And I think that nature poetry, or sometimes what people think of as nature poetry, still can hold that, like, I'm a solitary human
Yes.
gazing out at this expanse, and it's awe-inspiring, but I'm separate from it, or
Right.
it's beautiful, but I don't affect it. Or, whereas ecopoetics for me, it's in the mess of togetherness.
Hmm. Hmm.
Alongside that,
Hmm.
ecological grief, ecological joy. I mean, all of it. But yeah, the entanglement, like
Hmm.
in collaboration. That's what it means to me. To
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It sounds like for you, it's more of a recognition that we are not separate, actually, that
Yeah,
separateness is maybe an illusion, without,
exactly.
um, that there is no division. We're always accompanied and
Exactly.
accompanying others,
Exactly.
their
Siempre.
beings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, even just from the title, consider the rooster and the kind of like profound, what's the word I want to say, like solidarity with the rooster in the title poem, you know, this sense of kinship with the rooster, kind of interspecies understanding or fellowship is really strong. It's a fantastic, powerful poem.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the rooster obviously takes on a kind of symbolic proportion in the book, but also Walter the rooster, um, was a real rooster who disturbed property lines and conventions about land use and
Mm,
no and noise and expression, and he demanded attention, and to me, especially at that moment in my life, offered a model for um uh insisting on your own belonging,
uh,
on and also an alarm, a kind of sacred vigilance,
mhm.
and just all kinds of things. He taught me so much, and it was a really exciting moment when I realized that these poems were kind of spiraling around all of that. Not every poem in the book obviously is like has a rooster specifically in it, but his crow he's crowing through all of them, and like what his crow taught me, I think, is like where these poems come from. And and it was a kind of, you know, like strong identification
Yeah.
for sure.
And you're talking about insistence. And when we had our conversation back in April, you were talking about insistence as a concept that you draw from Gertrude Stein, like as an alternative to repetition. And I really wanted to ask you about like your relationship to Stein's work. I feel that dialogue in your poems, but I'm so curious to hear, like, for you, what is that relationship like to her work, and what is it about her work that speaks to you? Are there particular books or poems that are particularly meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, we all have, and I think at best something that writers can do for each other, whether it's like writers who are like contemporaries, or writers who we read and their work becomes important to us for some reason,
Yeah.
um that a lot of times, like, what that thing is like, I think that writers give each other permission slips a lot of the time.
Mm.
And so Stein, for me, the permission slip is, gosh, oh, an idiosyncratic relationship with language
Yeah.
um that uh can be both wily and also have its own kind of sense making,
Hmm.
and uh not just wily, but also, I think, a permission slip for pleasure with language, for pleasure in the
Hmm.
process of composition, of composing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
language. Um, and uh, Tender Buttons, for me, means something about doing all of that kind of through the portals of, like, really just the everyday material stuff that makes up a life.
Hmm.
Um, uh, her ideas on repetition also, which I think that's from an essay. I think it's from an essay in The Making of Americans, but I'm not totally sure. I don't know why the title of it is blanking for me right now, but that
Position is explanation, or maybe it's yeah, anyway.
yes, yes. And repetition, repetition uh is an important part of my process and my poetry, and uh I really appreciate how, what, like, her her idea that she offers, that because I think, I mean, when I'm writing, or certainly students, I feel like oftentimes have this question of, like, repetition, when does it do actually what I want it to do, versus, like, when might it be, like, mechanical and detracting from what I want it to do. And there's like like scientific studies, which we as poets, we already know this, right? But there are also scientific studies that, you know, explain the paradox of repetition, and how it can both increase someone's attention to something to hear it repeated, but also dull someone's attention to something to hear it repeated. And why is that? And how do you get it to do which one?
Right.
And, um, you know, uh, and so what she writes about, like, that if someone is still listening, then it's insistence.
Hmm.
Um, And if someone has stopped listening, it's repetition. So
Yeah.
it's actually sounds so simple. But
Yeah.
and then and also that if you're human, it's insistence, because even if you're saying the exact same thing, you've changed, or
Hmm.
the weather has changed, the world has changed, current
Yeah.
events have changed. So many things change all the time, and that there's some relief in there never being able to be a perfect repetition. So that has also um, influenced me a lot. And then I think just her life, um, and, as a permission slip to
Hmm.
do what you need to do and do what you wanna do and to trust in that.
Mm. And she's also a writer, as it happens, who left the US and
Totally,
made a new life in a new country and stayed there.
totally,
Um,
totally. Exactly.
um, in fact, I think she may have even spent more years in France than the US, but the US likes to claim her as an American writer. It starts to get blurry, you know?
Right. Like, Ireland tries to claim Oscar Wilde now, as if they
Yeah.
didn't drive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And she's a strong figure in history.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Um, are there any writers writing in Spanish? We talked about Lorca, but are there any Latin American poets who you turn to or draw from with frequency, or who've meant something to you in the past or you've recently discovered?
Yeah, mucho. Let's see, one of my favorite books since it came out is the translation from CSU Poetry Center of Raul Gomez Chatin's Almost Obscene.
Okay.
Mm.
Mm.
It's tremendous. And I can't believe I didn't bring it with me. It's like at the top of my literal bring me list for my dad. Uh, um, right. I'm reading. She's new. Well, she's new to me.
Yeah.
Idea Villarino.
Uh-huh.
Who else? Dolores Dorantes. Uh, I mean, so many of my poets sort of from and through the Canto Mundo community of poets, most of whom, live in the US, of course. I'm still, this is yeah, I'm still exploring
Yeah.
this. Yeah, totally.
Mhm. So it sounds like writers who have connections to all different countries who
Yeah.
write in Spanish originally. That's interesting. Yeah. Do you think you might translate some poetry into English at some point? Would that be?
Other people's?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like I said, I threw my bingo card out the window, so it totally could happen.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, no, in seriousness, yeah, I mean, all of the questions of translation are so interesting to me. I went to a conversation a couple of weeks ago about translation and poetry, and and uh was again a permission slip. One of the participants in the conversation said something about how all of writing is in some ways a process of imperfect translation,
Yeah.
and sort of the peace that you have to make with that and what becomes possible when you make peace with that, and then just all of the different levers of meaning
Mm.
and questions about the sounds of the words, different associations, uh, and just the way that translation um, helps work circulate.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh, so yeah, that it definitely feels interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, for sure.
Um, I'll be interested to see where this takes you, all of these projects, you know. Um,
Go
uh,
tell me.
what about, I wanted to ask you, there's such a kind of we're in a moment of flourishing of trans poetry, of poetry that's explicitly trans or written by people of trans experience who are thinking about precisely transformation, transitioning, and doing all kinds of amazing stuff with language. And I wonder if there are any whom you found to be fellow travelers, either in terms of community or in terms of their poetry being in dialogue with yours, or
Yeah, it is. Everything happens all at once, and it is like a golden age um of trans poetry. Uh so many. Roque Raquel Salas Rivera is definitely like sibling with me, um, poetically,
Hmm.
philosophically. Uh, Meg Day too. Meg Day. We met way back in 2010.
Hmm.
Uh, 2011, 2010 at the Lambda Literary retreat.
Uh-huh.
And uh they were the first person in my life. They were the first person in my life who asked me what my pronouns were. And that question helped me realize um that I could have an answer that wasn't obvious. It was really like it was really profound to be asked that.
Yeah.
Their book, Last Psalm at Sea Level, is just so good. And the way that they write kind of in between like embodied non-binary poetics and like deaf disability poetics is
Hmm.
I mean, for anyone who is interested in sound, um, is uh a whole world. And ¿Qué más? Uh, Wo Chan, whose first book, Togetherness, came out from Nightboat a few years ago. That book is excellent. It's so
Hmm.
good. It brings together like the speaker's modern life as a 20 something in New York doing drag and trying to survive with roots in like the Chinese restaurant in Virginia that their parents owned and that they grew up working in. And uh Sam Ace's work and um more than kind of just any individual poem or book, like their approach to being a trans poet,
Hmm.
I I find so inspiring. Like, por ejemplo, their books that they have published as like a co-author with their previous name, like both names as the author.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Um,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Totally. And I can't remember if that is that I can't remember what book. What book is that? What book is this? There's one also where like the preface that they wrote to the book is a sort of epistolary dialogue between the two of
Wow.
them
Oh,
in a
that's so
very
interesting. I'm definitely going to look this up.
it's totally interesting. Just like
Huh.
the idea of authorship and collaboration meeting transness.
Mhm.
Sam Ace, super interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, to name a few. It's so many, but
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to look up this book by Sam Ace. Yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me a little bit too of like Fernando Pessoa with the pseudonyms, and the like different personas that he felt were completely all real, right? I mean, he had many. Uh,
exactly. Like honoring the hats that the
yeah.
different parts of us that come to the
Yep.
page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Um, So let's see. I guess if to return to the question of exile and present circumstances a little bit, I just have to say again how moved I was by the essay that you published in LitHub in May. It's just exceptional. And yeah, just so moving. And you know, uh, you talk about leaving for self-preservation being your top, priority. And then you have these incredible quotes from James Baldwin about his experiences in Paris and getting away from the real social dangers that he says were visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. Um, and I'm just curious about like your engagement with Baldwin and what that has meant for your thinking and how much he's also keeping you company right now.
Yeah, Baldwin keeps me company. Baldwin is he's around for sure. Um, uh, I think that I mean, it's so many uh Baldwin, there's been this very funny phenomenon where it's like some lineages I think that we can to some extent some like artistic lineages I think to some extent we can choose and we can cultivate a little bit, and others we just sort of find ourselves in. And I have I knew before just how many writers who are important to me um had left their country, had spent time in exile, but I also don't think I really knew.
Yeah.
And so it's been this very interesting process of just like, oh, hello, all of you. What up, Dante? What up, James Baldwin?
Hmm.
Uh, Andre Asiman. It's like I find myself at this weird party that I didn't want to be at, and yet so many of my favorite writers are here. And Baldwin, uh, I guess at that party, I like to listen to what he has to say. And uh, I, the knowledge that his time in Paris was so fruitful for him creatively was a huge beacon for me
Hmm.
in those hellish weeks of like realizing I had to go packing, trying to figure everything out, of just like what it might all be for, what might wait me on the other side. And in his hearing it, reading about it, in his clarity, in his sentences, in his voice, uh, helped me and helps me stay focused and and like it helped me kind of understand and imagine my own future and just uh so yeah, he's uh he's around a lot for me, and I feel he's been good company in this at this weird party.
I love that metaphor. It's a movable feast. Um, so maybe sort of by way of conclusion, maybe we can circle back. We had talked in April about like diaspora and queerness and transness and how these things kind of intersect. And you gave this amazing response. And I wonder how now it's been a couple months, so maybe it's too soon to come back to this question, but I'm thinking about how in your family, there's sort of nested experiences of, let's say, diaspora from Puerto Rico in the US and you being in exile from the US now, and how all of this kind of spins around each other. And if there are any things that you're seeing differently now, after a couple months under your belt.
Oh, totally. I mean, another one of my new poems in Spanish has a line um, it's like, um, uh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it in the Spanish, and I'm trying to remember it. The English is something like, I understand now, Mom, like why there were always plastic bags drying upside down in your kitchen um, because such things are, uh, hang on, I'm approaching it. Um,
Take your time.
am I approaching it? Um, what poem was that?
Hmm.
I might have to look it up later and send it to you.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's fine.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, but like I understand now, like why plastic bags were always drying upside down in your kitchen because in the new country, such simple things are precious when like everything is new. Like I feel like I get it now why like the people in my family or like immigrants that I know like sit around and tell stories because it's like they fit that they're what fit in your bag. They took
Right,
up no space. Um
right.
and a way to travel when, you know, maybe you can't or to keep something alive.
Mhm.
Um and you know, the people in my family, they, you know, they're not they're not famous writers, but they're totally at the party. And that has been and continues to be just a huge source of strength for me, you know, of like I'm here because people who like came before me did what they needed to do to
Right,
survive.
right.
And like they didn't have like Google Street View, like they didn't know where they were going. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
and so you know, it's just interesting. It's all interesting.
Yeah. 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 Um, no, that's really interesting to think about the continuities, right, through generations
Yeah.
on these questions. Yeah. Um, Oliver, thank you so much for talking with me and spending all this time. I just looked at the clock and I've
So
taken
I've
afternoon.
it went so fast. It's been I've thank you for the questions and really it's been a total pleasure. Kept um I could have kept doing this probably without realizing what time it is. So
Well, let's hope this is ongoing conversation. This is ongoing. We will pick this up again. Uh,
exactly. Yes, please.
and I'll stop the recording now.
Okay.
And let's see.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No, thank you.